Today we are chatting to the lovely Bloody Drongo, a fantastic streamer and content creator, about his journey for the last 7 years. Is it 7 years? 2018?
Yeah, 7 years on Twitch now.
That is nuts.
Yeah, it's been a time. I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh, dude, trust me. I have been pumped for this all week. Like, genuinely, all week. I've been, like, so keen to jump in and hear about your journey and share your journey with some of the people on the YouTube channel. I just think it's really valuable and unique because I think a lot of people want to take the same kind of path you took, if that's kind of makes sense. But it looks like we have people rocking up. Hello, Lux. Hello, Vicious. Hello, Zelly. Welcome in, guys. I hope you are well. Drongo, would you like to do a brief introduction for people who don't know you?
Yeah, so I'm Bloody Drongo. I'm a content creator, and I've been full-time now for 3 years, but I've been streaming for 7, and I've been making YouTube content prior to that for much longer. And yeah, I also do art, and also do a little bit of voice acting as well. So
I didn't know that about you, the voice acting part. I'm also, actually, sorry, I just have a producer in my ear telling me that you're also obsessed with mayonnaise. You really like mayonnaise. Is that true?
It has been said that I am a mayonnaise fiend. I have definitely acquired a taste for it.
All right. Well, I'm glad your chat is instantly knocking on you about your obsession with mayonnaise. That fits nicely.
Perfect. Thanks.
So you said you started your journey on Twitch since about 2018. Drongo's a bit quiet. I will boost him up then. Thank you for letting me know. They said that you started your journey since about 2018. I'd love to hear about why you chose to start going live on Twitch, if that's all good.
Yeah, so I mean, with so the main reason that I decided to start streaming was because I finally got good enough internet to start streaming. I guess that's the battle with being based in Australia, is that up until fairly recently, we had very, very slow internet, especially out where I am in the country. And it was really a case of I'd been making content for a long time, and YouTube was the best place for that, because it allowed me to kind of, even if I had really slow internet, I could spend 8 hours, 12 hours to upload a 10-20 minute video and just let it go overnight. And that kind of made sense for me. And then when I got the internet upgrade, I had a friend go, "Oh, well, are you going to start streaming now?" And I'm like, "Oh, I hadn't even really thought about that, but yeah, that's a good idea." And I've never really, whilst I have enjoyed making content and doing stuff, I've never loved the process of editing.
Right.
I've never been in love with that side of things. And so for me, as soon as I did my first stream and I had that instant like interaction and that moment of, oh, I'm getting everything that I was getting, like all of the satisfaction, enjoyment, and all of the stuff that I enjoyed from YouTube, but without editing, I was like, yes, please, more. And yeah, it was pretty much from that moment onwards, I swapped my focus from YouTube to Twitch.
Okay, so I think that's really interesting because have you noticed, sorry, not you guys, sorry, Twitch streamer constantly referring to everyone's chat. Have you noticed that most streamers tend to fall into it? You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's this idea of like, yeah, I do that, but I can't because of my resources or whatever. And then suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess I could try. Like for me, I had a really bad PC. I only had a good PC on a Mac. And then I fell into an old VFX rig, essentially. Like literally, I broke an old VFX rig at my job and then bought it because I broke the corner of it off. And that was like, oh, I've now got a 1080 Ti. I can actually stream. Like I've got a good enough computer to do this. And I kind of fell into it. You know what I mean? Do you think going into it with that kind of falling is like important? Like, you know what I mean?
I think if you're going to be around for any amount of time, there needs to be a genuine passion and genuine interest in the actual act of streaming, because it is time consuming. And it's also really tough mentally. Like there is a lot of like downsides to it, and it can be quite difficult in a lot of aspects. and very invasive in your life. So if you don't have a genuine love for it, then you're not going to last a lot of the time. And there's a lot of people that I know over the years that have kind of picked it up, tried it, and gone, well, you know what, this maybe isn't this isn't for me necessarily. So yeah.
So intrinsic motivation is something I talk about a lot with new creators who come into this and they just feel like giving up so quickly. I always ask, you know, what is your goal of starting? Like when you go live, why are you starting? Like, and most of them tend to be like, oh, I'd love to do this as a job one day. And I go, oh, dude, that's the hardest one. How are you supposed to do that? Do you know what I mean?
That's tough. Yeah, I was like, when I started out, it was just genuinely because I like doing it. Like I'd been doing YouTube before 2018. I've been doing it for at least since like 2008, 2009, I feel like was when I started just making videos, and I made them because I just wanted to make stuff to make my friends laugh. And I was like I was even making like little silly videos for like Facebook and stuff like that, and just uploading stuff just for my close niche group of friends. And that was kind of all I was interested in, because I liked making people laugh and I liked it telling stories. That was always something that I felt like I was pretty good at and I liked doing. And so it wasn't until very late in my, like, I swore for a very, very long time, probably like the first 4 or 5 years of streaming, that I would never go full time. Like, it's as a content creator, like I would, the income's too inconsistent. There's, you know, there's too many downsides, too much uncertainty. It's never gonna happen.
I think one of the things for me was I set a rule saying that I wouldn't go live. I wouldn't be a full-time streamer or a full-time creator unless I'd earned 3 times as much as I earned from my jobs, because I worked 3 jobs when I started this. I said I wouldn't do it unless I earned 3 times the amount for 3 months straight. Because in my head, I was like, that's impossible to achieve. That's never going to happen. So therefore, this is like, if it does, I know I'm very confident I can do this. And then it happened, and I had to be like, well, shit, this is the goal I set for myself. I can't go back on it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
You go, sorry. No, go.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think having a structured approach to that, where you've kind of set yourself a goal and like, these are the exact things that I need to do to kind of prove to myself that I can do this and that I want to do this and I'm comfortable with doing this, is absolutely one of the very, very important things to actually, if you want to take this seriously and you want to become like have this become your career, you need to do. Like, I think it's already impossibly hard if you do that, but also it is going to be so much harder on yourself if you don't have a clear idea of what success looks like and what failure looks like as well. At what point do you kind of throw in the towel? Like, if you're not making enough money from it, like, at what point do you go, okay, well, I need to take a step back from this and, you know, kind of reevaluate things?
Yeah. I want to jump back into that exact sentence. I'm going to circle us a bit to the start of your journey again, but I want to put a pin right into that because I love that sentiment. In fact, one of my very last clips before I took a break from Twitch 2 years ago, it's someone said, what's the best advice you can give me as a creator? And I said, if you're running full pelt on a treadmill and getting nowhere, something needs to change, right? And that was like my big thing. I left people with, because I felt like that is what it feels like as a streamer sometimes. You are running full pelt on a treadmill and going nowhere. So I want to come back to that. But first, as much as I hate analytics, I kind of want to use it to paint your story a bit. You started streaming because you got fiber in about 2018. And something I noticed when I went through your old content was this game called Worm Online was a consistent throughput of a category. Nearly for something like 2 years or more, you always had that being played at some point for your stream. Can you talk to me a bit about what it's like to have a game that is a consistent throughput? Do you feel like that helped you, hindered you? Did it make it harder to try new things? I'd just love to hear a bit about that choice, because I think game category choice is something that people really debate amongst themselves. And Worm Online is not something I'd ever heard of, so it comes across kind of niche. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts about that choice and how it felt to be consistent with that while trying to branch out.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, like, with Worm, it is ultra niche, very, very niche. It's been around for a very long time. And for me, that was like the game that I've been playing that game since I was like 16, 17. Like, it is an old game. I've been playing it for, I mean, coming up to 20 years. So for me, like, I have a lot of friends through that game, and that was a lot of the content that I was making on YouTube back in the day. And I have, like, even beyond like the Bloody Drongo, like predating the Bloody Drongo YouTube channel, like I had multiple channels before that where I was just like making and uploading content about Worm to those channels just to share it with people that were playing the game. And that was kind of where that started. And like that kind of, I guess, directly hooks into like why I started streaming and the fact that it was a hobby and it was something that I was genuinely passionate and interested in. I still play it, but it's not a main focus for me now. In terms of like, did it make things easier for me to hone in on a niche immediately? Yeah, it did. Because for me, I immediately went, I like, because I had that YouTube audience existing of these people that would watch my YouTube videos for Worm, it meant that I could leapfrog into streaming. And I already went from like being being to absolutely nobody on Twitch to having a stream where I would regularly have, 10 viewers. And like, that is, I think for a lot of people starting out is really, really difficult to kind of go from that 0 to 10 stage. Like a lot of people spend a lot of time there because you have to invest a lot to build up that interest to start out.
That's so interesting to me because I guess you said at the start that you started on YouTube, like you were doing it. By the way, I love that you had multiple YouTube channels. I feel like every person who I've spoken to, including myself as a content creator, has like 30 or like not 30 maybe, but like a bunch of dead YouTube channels that did nothing, full of crap they hope nobody ever sees. And they've got them all tucked away there. I know I've got plenty of old, terrible YouTube channels that have died. But I think it's interesting because you said, I did this YouTube content. I played Worm already. I kind of had an existing audience, so I was able to jump past that super, really difficult early section. I kind of feel like that's something most people don't have. But is that something that you think most people should do? Like before ever going live, they kind of pick an audience, try capture that somewhere else, and then say, hey guys, I'm going to put my feet in. You know what I mean?
I think from if I was to put myself in somebody who's starting out in 2025, I think it is probably easier to grow on an external platform and build any kind of audience there, and then go to Twitch and then be like, hey, I'm live streaming this over on Twitch. Why don't you come and join me? Like, I feel like that's the easier way. Whether that's the right fit for everybody, I don't know. But that's, I think, at least that's what's worked for me. And it's tough to grow organically on Twitch, just as a focused streamer, just on Twitch. Yeah.
Especially if you don't have any support in the sense of, other content creators who are trying to work it as a proper, like, I want to grow situation. But one of the things I find really interesting is your game choice around Worm. Worm is really interesting because it's niche, but the things you choose to support that Worm content with on Twitch, I'd love to hear about your decision, because there are things like RimWorld, Stardew Valley. There's games in there that really, to me, I wouldn't go, this seems like it connects to this niche, but at the same time, clearly it did for you. So I'd love to hear about what kind of thought process you went into.
So, I mean, that was a lesson that I learned very, very early on. I found that I would sit there and I would stream Worm and I'd have like 10 people viewing me. And at that stage, that was huge. Like I felt like I was like on top of the world. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then I would go and play something like PUBG or Hearthstone or something like that, which was way more popular. But then I'd have 1 viewer, 2 viewer, and they would both be my mods. And I'm like, whoa, okay, all right, this is okay. I don't really understand what's going on here. But then I very quickly kind of learned that lesson of there needs to be some kind of like common thread or common interest to bring people over. And especially when you're first trying to introduce yourself to potential like new like core viewers, there isn't going to be like that common thread of the personality.
Right.
You need to have like some kind of like throughput in terms of genre niche, and that's kind of what I ended up going with, was trying to find games that were either like survival strategy, and even just in the indie genre overall, because those directories tend to have people that are really invested in these games, that are very interested in these niche games, but maybe they aren't the biggest directories, which gives you a better chance of standing out as a streamer, especially if you're maybe trying just a little bit harder than other people in the directory to engage with people and give them a fun viewing experience.
Yeah, that's really, it's really nice hearing that, because that was like a big thing that I did coming into this as well. Like I would do these big long playthroughs, which is something I see that you do, and it's one of the reasons I like your content, is because it very much connects with what I would do. I'd be like, I'm gonna play X game and I'm going to play it for like 100 hours and do it 20 episodes of it. And then if I die or wrap it up, I need to transition into something. And all the while doing it, I would be thinking, how do I transition these people? You know what I mean? So I'd be like, I'm playing Stardew Valley right now. How do I transition them from Stardew Valley players to Eljay viewers? And so something I was doing was I would play Stardew Valley, and then near the end of the stream, I'd say, hey guys, I don't know if you guys play Animal Crossing. I'm going to play like an hour of Animal Crossing to wrap the stream up, and you can come to my island. I'll go to your islands. And most people who played Stardew played AC. So I was like, yeah, come on over. And then people kind of knew me as that guy who at the end would all play AC together. Even when I was playing Valheim, which is a completely different game in a weird way, but it's still sort of building cozy stuff.
Fits into that.
And I think that like it took me a long time as well to learn that. You know, like at one point I tried to play Ocarina of Time on my channel because I fucking love it. But even though like I had 150 viewers watching me play Breath of the Wild, for some reason switching to Ocarina, I went down to like 20 viewers. It was nuts. And that's such a hard thing to learn. And I really love seeing that you can actually see the throughput on your channel of you figure that out and then connect it all together.
And it's something that I think you definitely don't always get right either. Like you will think that there is a common thread between games and it just won't work out. But you did touch on on a point there that is a very conscious decision that I made, and that was one of the really big things that I felt was very pivotal in reaching the point where I got partnered on Twitch and really kind of continued that through since then, was the idea of like doing like a playthrough and kind of committing to it. And that was a very like a conscious decision that I made, was, okay, how do I set myself apart from other people, from who are playing this game, and from the standpoint of, if somebody's playing this game themselves in their own time, how do I maybe make this a slightly different viewing experience to what they're doing in the game as well? And so the way that originally manifested for me was when I was playing RimWorld, I was doing like a very hyper specialized challenge run in that game, where I had to gather every single animal, a breeding pair of every single animal in the game, and build a ship and then launch it into space. And it took, I think, nearly 12 months. But that was one of the really big things that really kind of took me from like maybe like 30 CCV to being over 100 very consistently.
Right.
Was that kind of like, okay, I'm doing something that nobody would actually really usually spend the time to do this themselves in their offline playthrough, but it creates like tension and drama and a reason for people to want to tune back in, even if they're not watching every stream, but just to kind of go, oh, Drongo's streaming today, how's this challenge going? And so a lot of the things that I've done over the years have been around like this premise of doing challenge runs, or just trying to play the game in a slightly different way, or the first time playthrough as well. And this is like a really low barrier, is like, there is a lot of games out there that there is a fan base on Twitch and a community that love to watch people's first reactions of first experiences with games.
Yeah.
And finding those communities that are really invested in like seeing somebody's first experience with something, like that can be a really great way to grow as well. If you can take those people who are, I love this game, and take them into other games, especially like RPGs, like like the Bethesda games or like Mass Effect and things like that.
I think I think for me, one of the things I always struggled with was finding that unique twist, because I put too much pressure on the unique twist that I had to have for it. And I realized that a lot of people weren't watching me for those unique twists a lot of the time. By the end of it, they were watching me because they liked those reactions of like things happening, which is something that took me a long time to learn. Someone in chat said something, and normally I save questions for the end, but I actually think this is a really important thing to cover. Someone said, I think you should just play what you love and the viewers will come eventually. This is from YouTube. And I don't think you said not to do that here. I think a lot of people sometimes, there's this idea in people's head that when I say, or when someone says, you know, play games in a niche, they hear play things you hate. And it's like, no, no one's saying that, right? There's a difference, you know what I mean? You can play something you love, but still play something in a way or pick something in a way that lets you connect with the viewers, right? Being an artist, and as much as people want to argue this, a content creator is an artist. You have to make a decision whether or not you're going to create art for yourself and solely for yourself and hope that others connect with it, or if you're going to create art that also has an opening and a way to connect with a viewer, right? And I think that when you come into streaming, it's okay to be like, I'm just going to make art for myself. But if you're hoping to grow, you have to go, how do I make it that this art, this piece of content is also accessible to others so that they don't feel closed off from it or that they can connect with it themselves? So I don't think anyone's ever saying play things you hate or don't play things you love. I think everyone's always just trying to say, hey, consider the person you're actually trying to engage with, right?
That's a really great point. And that is something that I am always thinking about, is like, what value does this have to what I would hope to be my viewer? Like, ultimately, in terms of like game choice and directory choice, absolutely play something that you enjoy. But like for me, I have a really broad range of taste in games. Like I play first-person shooters. I play like real-time strategy games. I play like driving games. Like I love motorsport.
Really? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
really
you do.
tend to play those games on stream. Those like the compartmentalization of the things that I am interested in and enjoy has two benefits. One, it allows my channel to be more focused on the things that I have kind of considered to be targeted at my core audience and my core community. And then also it kind of gives me this space to be like, okay, this is my wind down game. This is just for me. And like trying to create that mental separation from content and enjoyment. And that means like, because there's so many content creators that I speak to that are like, oh, man, I do not play games anymore in my spare time. Whereas I'm like, I still play games in my spare time, but they tend to be different games from those that I play on stream, because I still have like, I have that very deliberate mental separation.
I think that's just inherently the best advice you can give to a new content creator, is that not everything in your life has to become content. You know what I mean? Like I constantly, people will be like, I love crochet, but I also love Animal Crossing. Should I do crochet and Animal Crossing on the same channel? And I'm like, you can do whatever you want at the end of the day, but I'm going to throw it out there. Not everything you do has to become a content on a channel. If you love crochet, use that as your thing that you just do by yourself quietly. Maybe just post the finished product to Twitter. You know, if you really want to share it, it doesn't have to be a part of it. And I think when people start making those separations, they become better creators, not because their content is better, but because they're mentally healthier. They have other things going on. You know, when you go on a holiday and come back to stream, I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, when I go away from stream and come back, my streams are always so much more energized. I have more to talk about, more to cover, and it's just a naturally better way mentally to be a creator, because you're not giving yourself away. You know what I mean? Entirely.
Sure. Yeah, you're not putting everything out there. I guess like ultimately what you're describing there sets up the groundwork for consistency. And I think that's the other really key component to if you want to be successful on Twitch, unless you're remarkably lucky, you need to be consistent. Like that is and I think this probably applies to life in general. Like if you're going to do anything, be consistent, and eventually you will improve. You might not be successful, but you will get better through consistency.
Yeah.
And that's and creating an environment to be consistent is the number one most important thing.
100%. I always say be consistently reflective, because I find a lot of people on streaming and in Twitch, when they hear consistent, they think, okay, I just got to be live 3 times a week, 4 hours, and stick to it, and that's what I got to do. And I'm always like, yeah, consistent, but also like, you got to be reflective on your decisions. Just a heads up, be reflective. Yeah, please 100%. Be reflective. So I always add that, because there's so many people who don't understand the idea of improving.
You've got to be aware of your consistency, and you've got to be, like you said, reflective. Like I still go back as a content creator. I go back and watch parts of my VODs. I watch my own content to understand where I can improve. Parts of it, if I'm bored watching my own VOD, I'm like, man, okay, here's something I can improve. Or if I'm like going, or if there's like a really long period of silence or something like that, it allows me to refine it. And it is something that like you don't just work on once and forget about that. It is something that you consistently have to work on improving or maintaining. Like sometimes it's not about improving. It's about being like trying to achieve a standard and being like, this is where I want to be at. How do I keep maintaining that standard?
Which is perfect, because earlier you were talking about the definition for success of a content creator. And I think that is something I want to touch back on, because the definition of success is something I've tried to impart onto a lot of my viewers, but also is something that I constantly have to remind myself. You know what I mean? I would love to know, what do you define as success for yourself? Whether it's a successful stream, individual stream, or whether it's, you know, a successful week of work. I just love to hear a little bit about how you measure that concept, because it's so arbitrary.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, that's one of the really tough things, like I think about content creation, is that you are a lot of your measure of success and your inherently, because you're investing so much of yourself into this, and a lot of the time as a content creator, it can be so intensely personal. Like you could be so passionate about something, and then when the metrics are just like dog water, you're like, I'm a piece of shit, like this, I suck, this is a direct reflection of me as a person. And that can be really hard. In terms of like what I quantify as success, like I have a lot of different ways that I look at it. There is the strictly business and financial lens, because like my background before I became a full-time content creator was as was in banking as a business manager, and like my job was working with small businesses and startup businesses to help them grow and to help them have the tools and resources required for them to do what they do best.
Yep.
And so like I have a very like business financial mindset of, okay, we have like key financial data that we look at and analyze to understand how the business is performing. So I have that frame of reference, but I also very much, I would consider myself reasonably emotionally intelligent, I guess. So I'm also very like
and humble. Clearly,
how do I feel about this?
Sorry, I'm just being an idiot. Sorry. Keep going. Sorry.
Totally fair. No,
I'm kidding. That's such an Australian thing to do. Interrupt someone making a really a clear and interesting point to make fun of them for something that clearly isn't their like a problem at all. Sorry.
Gotta cut down those tall poppies, man. Gotta keep them trimmed.
Such an asshole for an interviewer. Sorry, you were saying you feel like emotionally you're very aware of your content and how you feel about it.
I spend a lot of time reflecting about how I feel about my content. Like,
yes.
Do I actually enjoy doing it? Do I enjoy creating this? Does it actually bring me joy to be doing this? And then if it's not, asking the tough question of, okay, how do I find my way back to enjoying something? And yeah, like having these different lenses to examine it, but then also having like the hard set like numbers to go along with that emotional, like intangible question of, is this good? Is this successful to me? Having that, like, can I pay rent? Can I keep a roof over my head? Like, if I, you know, if I'm not making enough in a month to, you know, do those things, do I have sufficient savings to fall back on?
Yeah.
And like, that's like, you know, important. Like, it's a fundamental thing. It's uncomfortable, and it's something that not a lot of people are like, well, okay, am I going to sit down and budget? Like, not a lot of people, I think, are naturally inclined to do that. But you kind of have to if you're going to be your own boss, and if you're going to be kind of like navigating this as the captain of your, I guess, your fate, really, without getting like overly flowery with the metaphors. Like, you are in the driver's seat. You need to be the one controlling this and directing where it goes. So
you said something there that I think is going to be tricky to quantify for someone new. You mentioned how your background in banking and business really kind of gave you a leg up. And I feel like this is something for me that I've really struggled with, is that I come from a documentary film and media. I've done some TV, some festival, and then I learned digital marketing because I didn't like how little reach those things had in the modern day, right? And so when I came to streaming, I had a big marketing goal, like not a marketing goal, a marketing strategy that I built around Reddit that worked really well. Others don't really have those opportunities or those chances. So I'd love to know, coming into this, what do you think is something someone can do to start to kind of change their mindset, or learn maybe a new mindset that might set them up to be a bit more, maybe have a higher chance of success? I know there's never a full chance of success, but like, what's a mindset that someone can adopt specifically?
I would say probably two key things that I think would be useful if you do want to do this, and you can, I mean, it kind of applies to life in general, but like, try and, this might sound silly, I'm sure somebody will relate to it though, but try and learn how to learn again. I think one of the big things that I always struggled with when I was younger, and when I was in school, was actually finding an effective way for me to learn.
Yeah.
And being comfortable with the, I guess, the uncomfortability of not knowing something, and really trying to push through that part of like, I'm completely overwhelmed. I have no idea what I'm doing. Because it wasn't until I was like maybe like 25 that I found myself in a position where I kind of, it clicked for me that I was like, oh, this is kind of how I learn things, and this is how I can kind of best approach like trying to challenge myself. And that definitely translates into streaming. Like, I am constantly finding ways to kind of like challenge myself personally and doing new things to invigorate my learning. And I'm constantly learning, which I think is important.
You've stumbled into a scary topic, because I'll have to contain myself, because I am anyone from my OG chat, which it's a completely different time slot, so they're not around, but anyone who watched me back when I was in 2020 had to listen to me rant about the Australian education system and how it teaches you to memorize and doesn't teach you to learn. And because also I dropped out of high school and took a different path and ended up doing uni and everything. So I'm really aggressive about learning how to learn. Like, it's a little intense. So I won't go into it, but I will say that is probably one of the best pieces of advice anyone can ever actually get in life, is just don't let yourself become lost in your ways and stale and stuck, right? I always say a lot of people assume older generations shouldn't know how to use a computer, because of course they didn't. They didn't grow up with it. And I always say, who do you think is better at understanding new tech when it comes out? A kid who has no concept, or an adult who has full ability to reason, have logic, to research something? It's learned helplessness at the end of the day, you know? And to convert it back to streaming, when you say to someone, hey, you should edit instead, you know, get a little audience, edit a little bit stuff. They go, I don't know how. Well, it's a skill. No one does, right? None of us did. So I won't get into the education, but I love it. I think that's a really powerful thing to remind everyone of, is just be ready to know nothing and be okay with knowing nothing, because it means there's something cool and exciting that you can pick up. Bring it back to this year. We've been watching your Zero to Hero Zomboid playthrough in the background while we've been speaking. I've had it up. Some amazing plays, I will say. We watched you cut your hand on some glass going through a window, which looked very fun.
Perfect. Yes.
I want to talk a bit about what your key focuses this year are, or so far, and then going forward. Are you focusing more on Twitch? Are you focusing more on sponsor work, brand work? What are some big goals or things that you think are important so that you can keep this going and keep consistent as a content creator?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in terms of what my focuses are this year is really around kind of trying to get out of my comfort zone a little bit more. I've never done like I've been to lots of in-person events now over the last few years, but I've never been part of a panel or anything like that. So I've, you know, been doing some stuff around that, and like that aspect of things, like being somebody who, like, I feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel like I'm in a position now where I'm ready to share what I've learned with people. And that is one of the areas that I get a lot of personal satisfaction from, but also I think that I've got a lot to learn in terms of how best to reach people and how best to engage people. So, I mean, this is an example of one of the things that I was focused on this year.
Specifically me.
Just specifically like yourself. It was just a happy coincidence that this ended up being. But this is exactly this type of thing that I personally am invigorated in doing, and like it really energizes me being able to share my experiences. They're not always going to be helpful or applicable to everybody, but I am fully confident that there is at least one person out there who resonates with, you know, some of the stuff that I'm saying, or will find at least one little bit of information or one perspective useful and take that away and be like, okay, that's cool. And I think that's really fun. So yeah, being part of panels, being more engaged with the community in general, and doing that more outwardly. I've kind of done that for a while behind the scenes a lot of the time, over the last few years anyway, but I'm looking forward to trying to be more kind of outward facing in terms of reaching people with experience, I guess.
I find what you said about how maybe it'll help one person is kind of the way that a lot of people feel about the best way to feel about education. Because one of the things is, like, doing these interviews, I never really know if it's going to work, how it's going to work, if people are going to take anything away from it. And then there's always that moment where I go check the Discord after the stream and someone will be there being like, oh, them using that phrase really clicked with me. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it is. And I know that someone in chat has already said that you being so open about your journey on your streams as well has really opened their eyes up. Especially because the other night I joined you for your Zero to Hero, not joined you, I joined your stream to watch it. And you were talking in a really, really organic or authentic way about your journey and how others are struggling and why they're struggling and what they can kind of do to pull through those things, right? Including the definition of success, which you talked a little bit about before. But the reason I want to talk about this is that, do you think the hours you spend live can affect how mentally drained you are? In the sense that, is there a cap for you personally that you have to end your stream, or you can't be live anymore, you have to go do something else? I want to hear a bit about that kind of burnout that comes from being so online and being so open with yourself to your audience.
Yeah, I think there is. I think everybody will have a limit of like, hey, this is my bandwidth, my capacity to engage. And I mean, everybody will have a different level of investment engagement with their communities. So, and everybody will have a very different, like, I guess, well of energy that they can draw from to invest into that. For me, like, I tend to find that after 5 to 6 hours, my ability to engage and like put out good content kind of diminishes after that. Like, I don't, like, I've experimented with doing longer streams and I've watched back that content and I'm just like, I don't think this is better. And it's also reflected in my CCV as well, is that I will usually reach a peak about 4 hours in and then it will start to tail off. And that's kind of, to me, indicates like, hey, this is around like where you're kind of peaking. And then as well, like looking at how I feel about when I'm streaming, I tend to feel kind of tired around that 5 to 6 hour mark.
Okay.
And I could go longer. I could always go longer, but knowing that if I stop now and I'm not going to be pulling from energy from future streams, like if I go and do a 8 hour stream, then maybe the next day I'm like, oh, well, I might just take the day off, and then I've lost 5 or 6 hours from going an extra 2 hours longer. So just like finding your limit and then pulling yourself back from that by 10 to 20%, I think is a really good way of trying to encourage, again, that consistency, by measuring yourself out and not taking energy out of future and losing out more ultimately in the long run.
I hadn't even thought of it that way personally. It's definitely something that's happened to me where I've done like a massive stream and the next morning I've woken up and not worked. Like I've just not been able to work or edit or do anything, right? Or it's taken me hours to wind down from a stream, so I haven't been able to go to bed, and that's also messed me up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But something you said that I thought was really interesting was you were so aware of your content not being good after losing a little bit of what you love about it after a certain point. Do you have that idea in your head of the value you're giving your audience consistently? Like while you're live, are you ever thinking to yourself, "Oh, that wasn't good," or "That was fucking great. I'm really good at that one." You know what I mean? Like, is that a conscious thing you're constantly reevaluating and thinking about the value you're providing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything that I do in terms of my content, I always run it through the lens of what makes this valuable. And a lot of what makes my stream valuable is the engagement, is the conversations, the back and forth, the banter, and being able to have those conversations, whether they're silly or whether they're serious. Being able to be an active participant in not just the stream, but in the community itself is inherently a valuable thing, because people want to come in and watch a stream. And like this kind of, I guess, wanders off into a bit of a different tangent. But like, I think as you grow as a streamer, you will find that your viewers tend to value different things depending on how big or small your stream is. You will attract people that are looking for something, and everybody will be tuning in, whether that's white noise to have on in the background, whether that is like engagement and conversations, whether that is just to be like part of like almost like a sports crowd environment. Like there is going to be always like some element of value in that stream that makes them want to be there. And that is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about and asking the question of, how do I make this valuable?
I had a really interesting thing happen in that sense where I think I lost sight of what I loved about my community, right? And I've admitted this to my community before, and there's a few people who have popped into chat while we've been talking from my OG community who are going to be like, yeah, that's right. Fuck you, dude. But essentially, I used to go live 7:30 Australian time, and I'd be live, 3-4 times a week. And I built this community where I think it was kind of exactly what I wanted from Twitch. We were chatting, we were having a laugh. I was an idiot on stream. I did dumb stuff in games by accident. I was the butt of the joke, but so were certain chatters. Like, it was very similar to how you interact with your chat, in the sense that like you kind of feel that community is there. And I loved that. And then I started talking to content coaches, because I got in touch with some content coaches through my YouTube channel, and I got in touch with some other people, and all this stuff behind the scenes started chirping at me about like, to be the biggest, you have to be this, look at this guy, he's doing this, do this, do this, do this. And I ended up, feeling so much pressure. I started doing daytime streams or leaning heavier into the stream scheme content on Twitch, which was really interesting, because suddenly I'd go from like 100 average to like 300 average, but the entire stream was, hey man, here's how I grow, or here's some updates lately, here's how you do this thing. And I saw the average was higher, but that rapidly burned me out, because it wasn't what I loved, right? It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't the value that I appreciated. So I'm curious, have you ever fallen into something that your community really values and really responds to that you just aren't at all about, right? That it's like, you're like, oh, I'd never want to do that again. Is it the Shrek outfit? Someone mentioned shoeies earlier,
It's interesting. I'm sure that there is. I'm sure that there is. There's nothing that immediately comes to mind as specifically as like, my community loves this, but I hated it. Like, there is definitely things that like people have responded to that I haven't like really focused in on. And kind of, actually, this is probably a good example. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I did some streams in Skyrim with an AI companion.
I've seen clips of this, yeah, of yours.
Yeah, so that was like my first like moment of actually having something go you know, semi-viral off platform on like TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that. And that content performed really, really well. And I really enjoyed making it, but I only enjoyed making it for so long. Like, I think I did like maybe a few streams here and there. And this was in between my core Twitch content of like at the time I was doing like a permadeath run in Skyrim on like the hardest difficulty and stuff like that. And that was like interspersed in there was these silly like AI Skyrim streams where I'd be talking to my companion. I'd like written the character in the game to be really sassy and like talk shit about streamers and be like really mean. And that really got a lot of traction. It was very funny, but it was only funny for like 5 hours, maybe like once a week.
Right.
After that, it was just like, for me, I didn't enjoy it because it was just kind of like, number one, it was like pretty like labor intensive to keep it running and like having to troubleshoot. And like, I would also be, I've actually not talked about this before, but to make the character feel, to come up with like the shortcomings of ChatGPT, to make the character more dynamic and more interesting for the stream in the community, I would be actively, while playing, I'll be writing in the actual ChatGPT like prompt as to like how this character was meant to be engaging. I'll be modifying as it goes to kind of like hone in on little jokes in the community would be making, little like little details to help make it feel more dynamic and less repetitive. But even after a while, that was just something that kind of like, at least to me, lost its luster and lost its joy. And I'm sure that I could have kept doing that and kept like getting these little viral clips to go out there. But I found that like, even though I think in the best month that we had with those clips, I did like maybe 5 million views on TikTok. And out of that, like there was like maybe like 500,000 likes. And then out of that, there was like 10,000 follows. And then out of that 10,000, there was maybe like 200 people that actually went over to Twitch.
You say that, but your community is here right now. And they literally are saying like, dude, there was an era where every second message was, I found you from your shorts. So like your community clearly recognized the growth of how many people were coming in at the same time.
But none of them stayed. Of
course, no, yeah, they never do.
The only people that came across, there was like, there's a constant diminishing returns. I think there is one person that I know came across from that who occasionally still comments on my videos and comes into stream. One person.
Right, okay.
And so that's out of 5 million views. So for me, like, it didn't really make a lot of sense in terms of like the way that filtered into what was my core content.
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't prepared to change what my core content was and change what I found valuable to kind of like cash in on those higher views, because I felt like being ultra responsive can be good. It can allow you to leverage that, or it can be a real like like shooting yourself in the foot, because it can like undermine your key or your core audience and your core community. And that wasn't something, it just wasn't something that I was prepared to compromise. I wanted to keep doing what I wanted. I didn't want to be the Skyrim AI guy. I wanted to be a variety like broadcaster.
Dude, you're a smarter man than I, genuinely. Like, I fell for it. I don't want to dox, not dox. I don't want to throw people under the bus. I just had some very big creators and some very talented people and some people who do coaching for these big guys being like, dude, if you want to make this successful, you just lean into it. You got to lean into the content advice on stream. You got to change your stream time to the day, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I guess I can do both, you know? And just by doing what you're saying, right? By shooting myself in the foot, essentially, by converting to something I didn't ever really want to be live. I love doing the education stuff, but I love doing it offline, right? And I love instead doing the community and the engagement. Your chat, by the way, is losing it at your reveal that you were midstream editing the responses. They were actually, they were saying mind blowing. That's nuts. I've
never talked about that before, and yeah, the veil has been lifted. Yeah,
they know you're a liar. That's what this is, right? You lie and fake your content.
It's all smoke and mirrors. They know this. They know this. They should.
Okay, I want to ask you something about your shorts, right? Because it's not just that the people converting weren't converting very high. I think it's really interesting that you said that, like, you know, X number of people came in, this many people stayed, this is how it all, like, and you had a really good way of thinking about that. It wasn't just about, yeah, I'm getting the viewers. This is something I see a lot. Streamers really struggling to bring viewers in from short format or even just YouTube in general, right?
Yeah.
What do you think has been successful for you, or like the main driver for you that's actually kept people who have come in and stuck around long term?
I don't know.
That's fine too. That's a great answer.
Converting from short form and even long form content into active, engaged Twitch viewers is something that I have not cracked. I don't feel like I've got any idea on how to do it with any degree of repeatable success. I don't know. I do shorts. I do short form content. I do long form content. But in terms of like, what is the key thing that actually makes somebody who watches that content and then comes to the live stream and getting them to stick around, I've got no idea. And it's like the vast majority of my growth has come from Twitch and is people that are already Twitch users. It's so much easier to get a Twitch user to watch Twitch than it is somebody who has never watched Twitch a day in their life to want to watch Twitch.
Yeah.
Especially if they're coming from like a 30-second clip, which is like your best and funniest moment.
It's your highlight. Yeah.
It is your highlight, to getting them to sit through, you know, hours of you just sitting there chatting with people. That's not what's valuable to them. What's valuable to them is like that really high point, that really comedic moment. And they might subscribe to your YouTube channel where they can get that value, but they're not going to watch your stream. So maybe there is a way to do it. I've just not figured it out yet. So yeah, I
think it's hit and miss. You know, someone in chat recently just said, you know, does all this stuff actually work, or is it potluck? This is from YouTube. And, you know, I think that there's an element of both. I've noticed with YouTube, the longer you do YouTube and the more successful, well, not more successful, the more you practice and learn, a lot less luck happens, right? Like, on my side channel this last year, I've definitely proven to myself that, yes, there's a luck factor, but I'm way more consistent at hitting that luck factor, right? Everything I learn, everything I do and work harder at lowers the amount of luck I need. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if you've played, don't know if chat's played, but you've got a stat. Let's say you've got like 10 strength, 12 strength, whatever it is, and you have to open a door. Maybe it's locked and you want to try rip it open. You roll your dice, right? There's a luck element there. Yeah. But if you're playing a barbarian with 16 strength, you probably don't need a high roll to rip that door open. And it's the same thing. The more you've learned, the more effort you've put in, the more you appeal to your viewers with your thumbnail and your title, the less that roll is going to matter. So moving back to a different question someone asked. They want to know how you make your content feel effortless or so full of energy, or just generally that comes across when they watch big streamers. It feels like the content they're watching is smooth. And they want to know about whether that's something you learn, whether that's something that's natural, and just kind of go into that for you.
I think the key thing is practice, like practicing talking with people, and practicing talking to yourself. Like, if one of the things that I did a lot when I was first starting out was just talking to myself, because there would be long lulls in the chat when nobody would be asking questions, when nobody would be talking. So to kind of make sure that if somebody tuned in onto that stream at that exact moment, they would know what I was doing, what I was thinking about. They would be more likely to ask questions. And to be sitting there describing what you're doing in game and then asking questions to people, not necessarily specifically to somebody in particular, but just saying, oh wow, I wonder how this works.
Booty Slayer 69 in chat, I'd love to know, what are you doing right now? You know, like really targeting your lurkers. Really get in.
Exactly. Yeah, doing the classic ninja streamer advice of having your streamer list open and calling out specifically lurkers.
That was crazy that he said that.
Dude,
I forgot
wild.
he said that till just then.
Absolutely wild.
That is nuts to me. I can't believe it.
No, but creating, like, the way I think about it is like creating verbal hooks for people to latch onto, whether that's a moment, whether that's a statement, and that's the other thing as well, that I think my chat will type 1 in chat if you think that I've actually gotten pretty good at this, but creating a moment for people to be like react to. So like mispronouncing a word, saying something just kind of out of pocket that's like just mildly enough to be like unhinged and get a reaction, but also be like kind of relatable or at least believable, and like just having those moments for people to jump in and actually participate in the conversation is a really good way of like actively like making it feel effortless. To kind of go back to the original question is like, how do you make it effortless? Practice and make conscious decisions on how you're engaging and talking with people, and you will get better at it. It will take years. Like if somebody tunes in tomorrow, it's worth mentioning that this is like where I am now as a content creator and how I engage with people and how I talk to people. That is the ultimate fruits of 7 years of practice.
This isn't just you going, this isn't how you looked 7 years ago, right? Like you can go back and look at the OG clips or look at your worm videos on YouTube. You know, it's a very different person, not a bad person, just different, right?
Exactly. And that's maybe a fair point to make in there, and a good little asterisk is that it has to be authentic, because if you're going to be live streaming, you're going to be putting a lot of yourself out there, and if you're putting on a facade, if you're putting on an act, it's going to be really taxing. It's going to be really difficult to do that. If you're like doing a caricature or a persona, that's going to be really tough. I don't have a lot of experience with that besides a little short burst that I have, like little characters that I'll do. But making sure what is the meat and vegetables of your content, making sure that is authentic and who you are, but then refining that to be engaged with people and resonate with people is, you know, the best way to go about that and be sustainable with it. And
it's not just for Twitch as well. It works on all platforms. Specifically, you know, literally yesterday I was going and pulling up some old YouTube shorts from when I was, you know, I did a lot of Pokemon content when I was taking my break to learn stuff because I love Pokemon, and I have these YouTube shorts on my old channel that have like 2 million views, and when I watch them back, they come across to me really fake. They weren't fake, but it was like I was trying to perform, and like this is just from like a year and a half, 2 years ago, right? But I'm like, have you ever seen this Pokemon? And I'm trying to put the voice on and do it all, and it comes across so like people still enjoyed it, right? But it feels so forced. And then there are these little moments, and this is the reason why I get so many comments on these things, where I would do things on purpose because the Pokemon community were rabid for correcting a mistake. Rabid. So I would literally be like, oh, I forgot the name of that. It's like a little lava snail. And they'd be like, it's a slugma. And then I'd be writing in the comments, slug my balls, you know, like I'd be just doing and it was literally exactly what you're talking about, right? Like I was just doing it and trying to reflect and trying my best to like fix my voice and not fix, but or become better at presenting and projecting, while being really conscious of why would this stand out to someone and get them to remember me and engage with me. And I'm still learning that to this day, you know, like during this stream, I was supposed to say multiple times, ask questions, and I'm writing them down, and I haven't told people once to write questions and ask them so I can write them down for you. And so it looks smooth to people, but there's a dozen things going wrong to us probably, right?
That is the average streamer experience, is that you're doing it live, you're doing production, you're doing tech, you're doing everything. Like you're juggling a lot of balls. Things are going to go wrong. It's going to be scuffed, and lean into it, I guess, is the way that I've always had the mindset of, is like, it's going to be kind of messed up a lot of the time. Just deal with it and just make the best of it. And if you can, make a light of it as well. So
yeah. I mean, I think I said this in a recent video because I was watching some TikToks and someone said, you know, don't troubleshoot live. And I was like, that's great advice, but it's not possible. You literally just can't have
sometimes
that.
You got to.
like when I'm mid sponsored stream with Red Rooster and my bitrate starts buffering, I can't just pretend it's not happening and not troubleshoot it. Like it's literally like I need to turn this into the content or else I'm screwed kind of thing. And it took me a long time to not be, I hate the word, but to not be triggered by tech issues. When I was first starting out, dynamic bitrate was destroying my stream by constantly causing me to have like pixelated, terrible looking streams. And I would lose it. Like I'd be like sitting there like, oh, it's all right, guys. But internally I'd be like, I'm going to lose my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's taken me so long to get over that. And I think that's still going to be something I have to get over in the future.
I like, to be totally honest with you, like I still find that it affects my mood. If something like is really badly going wrong, it can like the other night, for example, my internet dropped out twice. And like after the second time, I could have, like my internet came back on very shortly after it dropped out. I could have kept streaming, but at that point I was just like, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm just going to call it a night and just leave it. Like it's, it happens. And I guess like giving yourself a little bit of leeway as well to be frustrated and be like, I guess, it's a valid feeling. If you're frustrated, you're frustrated. It is what it is. It's
you're a human, right? It's authentic to be a human because people want to watch humans.
Exactly. So it is what it is. But I think you do build a higher tolerance for having to do that, and it does affect me, like you said, less than it used to. So yeah.
I want to ask a little bit about some of your choices with your stream. So again, we've been having on a few of your different clips in the background. Specifically, there we go. I'll pull up your Zero to Hero again. And you use a green screen, but you do have like a very beautiful background in your shot right now. Can I ask a little bit about your decision for OBS? Someone asked about cam versus no cam decisions for you, but I think it's kind of hard because I think you've always been a cam, if that's correct.
Almost always.
Yeah.
I have had periods where I have gone no cam. Yeah, again, it is a conscious decision in terms of what like whether I use a green screen or not. There is some games where I think the screen real estate is better used to be dedicated to the game. There is other games that I play where it's not as important and you can just have the background up and it's kind of like more of just like a vibe. I don't think there's any like hard and fast, like this is the X amount of screen percentage that should be your face. This should be the X amount of, gameplay that should be shown. Like there's so many different people that have different things. I think it just ultimately comes down to personal preference. I generally try and keep my camera in the same place on the screen if I can, just for the sake of consistency's sake, and so I'm not having to have multiple different setups. But ultimately, like, it's just down to the vibes, I guess, is the best way. I don't think it's like a super important thing. I think in terms of the question of like cam versus no cam, I think cam can be a really useful tool to kind of become somebody relatable and somebody real instead of just just a voice.
Yeah, of course.
And that can help people connect with you a little bit easier when they can see your reactions, they can see your expressions, and they can see if you're actively interested or excited or engaged. That can be useful. That being said, I've worked with and been peers with a lot of no cam streamers. Yeah. And it is still possible to do that. You just need to make the connection and get across that excitement and those moments of surprise or anger or anxiety. You need to make up that in your voice.
You got to project, right? Like that whole emotion of what's happening. Yeah. You can't just go quiet and make a face. Like, it's the difficulty factor adds.
Exactly. And it's a whole thing, like a separate skill set that you need to develop around like training your voice and your
Mm,
reactions and your whole engagement around being either a cam or a no cam. I think that if you try to split the difference, then it's usually less successful.
yeah. You know what's interesting? I've found on YouTube, I always figured having a cam was much more engaging and better for content. But I found on the new YouTube channel, not having the cam on or not
Is
putting it in
better.
my edits has done so much better. It's almost like people have connected with my voice and the content and they kind of portray me as the character on screen in the game in those moments, and then they can just
Mm,
imagine the rest of it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's
It's very interesting to me because it feels very very like polarizing compared to my experience of Twitch. Like
mm,
Twitch is like very much like cam focused and talking to people. And if you go back and watch my old videos, all of them are with a camera.
yeah.
Because I thought that was like intuitively to me, I was like, hey, this is me. This is like, you can see me. I'm real. But ultimately, like the evolution that I came to understand is unless I'm posting like clips from stream or unless I'm like editing highlights together to put
Yeah.
onto YouTube, then all of my other videos, unless I'm actually talking to the camera about a subject,
Mm,
are just me talking with like what I actively want to show. And I think
yeah.
the big thing about that is that it kind of I think like the way I've always kind of interpreted this is the value in those content in the content that you are creating where you don't need the camera. The focus should be on what's happening on screen,
Yeah.
and the value is what's happening on screen rather than you being just a little person down in the corner talking at them.
Especially if you're unknown, right? Like this is the other thing that's really
Yeah, they
interesting
don't
is
care about
if
who you
if if
are.
nobody
Yeah.
knows who you are, like why include the face? So I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Also, for example, you don't use a green screen last night or the night before, sorry, depending on I don't know what day it is now, because you were green. You were Shrek.
I was green, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes there is just technical limitations. Although I do have a blue screen, white screen, and black screen as well that I could whip out if I wanted to. But
Okay.
man, who has time for that? Good
So
lord.
I'd love to know a bit about your events or like how you do these silly big events, and have they always been a part of your content? Are they new? Did you wait till you had a certain number of viewers? Because I think a lot of advice people get given is do a big event, you know, stand out by being a big creator, by doing a big event. Is that actually possible? You know, talk me through, like, for example, the Twitch, the Shrek stream.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the biggest thing is that this is relatively new to my channel. Like doing silly, like cursed, unhinged cosplays is very new to me. Like over the last year or so, and that was something that I started doing just because I thought that it aligned with kind of what I wanted to do in terms of like creating stuff that was memorable and different and just a little bit weird. It aligned with that, but it also was something that in terms of being like listening to my like community and trying to hear like what they would find valuable or interesting, like when somebody makes a joke of like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if you know, dressed up as Shrek, or wouldn't it be funny if you did like a sexy Optimus Prime cosplay?
Did you do a sexy?
Wouldn't it-
Hold on, did you do that? Is there
Next week,
oh
Wednesday next
oh
week. Coming to a stream near you.
coming definitely is the key word. Can I just on that topic?
We'll see.
You've just mentioned something is coming up. Something I used to make the mistake of was announcing something and then having to delay it or not doing it. So I stopped telling anyone when I was doing things. I would just like the day of, if I knew it was happening, tell people and then announce it. How do you feel about announcing changes or exciting things coming? Do you just wait for the day? I'd love to hear your thought process on that.
I guess it really depends on like why you would have to delay things. Like, because I for me, like I tend to be, I will tend to be in the position where once I am certain something's happening, once I can commit to it, I announce it, and I'll try to announce it usually a week in advance. Sometimes it's not always possible, but like I do make a conscious decision of trying to build up at least a little bit of excitement, a little bit of like of interest in it, and like ultimately the like, for example, the Optimus Prime thing, that is from like, that is a hangover from like the end of last year. We're in February now, so like sometimes things will get delayed. Like the stuff that I needed for this costume, it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. Like I ordered it like 3 times, and so it pushed it back and pushed it back and pushed it back. And so, but it wasn't until a week ago that I announced it, once I'd actually got everything that I needed.
Yeah, of course.
I guess like that as well is maybe something that is worth considering, is like, if you're say you're going to do something, do your best to actually see that through.
Yeah.
It's your community.
It's the blue balls you worry about, right? You don't want to hype it up and then fall through. Oh, that's actually something I tried to put a pin in earlier for you that I need to quickly pull back up, because we are obviously coming near the end of this. So if you have questions, please throw them in now. You said you wanted to do playthroughs like 0 to Hero, or the first playthroughs, or the challenges, or things that make you stand out, right? And you play them through. When do you decide is a natural stopping point? And do you ever worry that stopping too soon or too early, or not reaching a goal, is going to hurt viewer retention because they wanted to see an ending?
I think it depends on a lot of different factors, because obviously it is always satisfying to have like a clear-cut conclusion. Like when I got to the end of Stardew Valley, that has a pretty like firm conclusion. I was able to be like, right, we've done it. We've finished Stardew Valley. It's done. We've got the, we've achieved Stardew perfection. It's done. Yeah. Other games, it is harder to actually draw that distinction. I usually tend to try and only play games where there is like a fail point. And if I fail, and if I feel like I'm at a point where it has failed and it is time, there's no like, I guess like hard thing that you can look at and go, is it the right moment? It's more of a feeling you get, I think, where you just go, okay, it's time to move on to something else. The other factor in there as well is that sometimes there will just be another game that comes out that you're like, oh, this would be a really good fit to my channel. I know a lot of the community are excited and interested in this. And in my experience, if that is the case, if you have made that assessment correctly, you'll find out pretty quickly, because the vast majority of people will be like, oh, dude, I'm so happy to see you playing this. Or I'm so happy to like, that you're enjoying this. Yeah. And you won't have that huge group of people of being like, oh, when's this coming back? When are you going to do this? So you can kind of like take that step, kind of see what the reception is. Have you actually judged that correctly? And then kind of make a decision after that. And that is something that I usually tend to do quite often, is that if I am going to jump over to a different game, I'll kind of like commit to doing maybe 1 or 2 streams, kind of feel it out, see how it's received. And then if I'm enjoying it and the community seems to be enjoying it, then I'll usually play it for longer. But sometimes I'll play it for 1 or 2 streams, and then I'll put it back down again and go back or go on to something else entirely. So how do you do that when you're small and starting out? Is that just something that's trial and error? You just have to go with your gut, feel it out? If there is a really good way to do it, I don't know what it is. It's something that you just... Me neither. You just have to kind of feel it out and see what works and what doesn't. I don't think there's like a best practice, because there's ultimately, like in terms of like variety streamers, there's... if you're a variety content creator, there is so many different like niches that you can occupy. Yeah. That I think that everybody's mileage is going to vary a lot. And your community as well, like what they find valuable is going to be very different between different games. So I don't think there's anything really prescriptive in terms of advice you can give around that. It's just make your own mistakes, try and be attuned to what your community is saying about what you're doing, and try and make the best decisions based off of that.
And you're going to fail, right? Like at the end of the day, you're going to make a mistake and play something nobody cares about, you know? And I feel like we talked a little bit about that earlier. I just wanted to bring it up again because some people have asked in chat a couple times about stuff like that. So I want to take it back to best practices, right? Because that's a phrase you just used. We're near the end now, and I would love to know, what do you think is the most important piece of advice 2025 for someone doing this? Either they're about to start, they've just started. Your like go-to one-liner of, hey, you got to focus on this, or hey, the one thing that's going to matter is this kind of thing. There's going to be a lot, but what are you feeling?
So I have the great honor of talking to a lot of people, a lot of streamers that have come up recently in the last couple of years. And the number one most consistent thing that I see between all of those streamers that have managed to grow over the last year or two has been consistency. And setting up an environment where you can be consistent is always going to be the number one thing. And like, if you like the way that, coming from a business and finance background, the way that I kind of describe it is like, if you're investing in the stock market, right? You're not trying to time the market. Time in the market beats timing the market.
Interesting.
So, and streaming is very much the same way. Being consistent, and like we talked about earlier, like a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is just being in the right time at the right place, getting the right raid, meeting the right people, having the right person stumble across your stream that wants to stick around. All of that is stuff that you can't control, but putting yourself in a position and creating an environment where you can just be consistent. You can stream 1 day a week, you can stream 2 days a week. But if you're doing like that consistently over years, you're maximizing the opportunity for you to improve, to refine your skills, but also to have those lucky moments. So consistency is the number one thing that I think is the thing that I would preach to somebody starting streaming today, is create an environment to be consistent.
100%. I agree, you know, and I think that at the end of the day, that consistency is the phrase that is the answer to pretty much every question, right? Or what game do I pick? Well, try pick something that's consistent with the rest of your games, you know. Or what time should I stream? Well, pick the time where you're going to be consistent every single time you go live, right? If you're going to have to switch your time every time because it's different, that's not going to work as well. You know, treat it like a TV show. I just want to say, someone in chat just wrote in, stream games no one else is playing. Discovery is hard. I want to throw it out there. You don't have to do that. Sorry, this is just something I always bring up. Play what, it doesn't matter at all. Just Discovery comes from whatever you're going to put your effort into for Discovery. If no one's playing it, probably no one's watching it. Just want to say as well. You're not always, but you know.
I disagree with this take.
Yeah?
I actually disagree with this take. So I actually think there is a lot of, like, especially in the indie niche, there is actually a lot of value in putting the time and effort into discovering those niches. They are rare.
Yes.
This is not like, again, this is like very like, if this works for you, it will work really well. But for some people, this will work well. And this has worked well for me. Like, for example, right now, FTL is a game that I can't see the directory right now. I'm going to guess that there's maybe between 1 to 3 people streaming in that category, but it has thousands and thousands and thousands of people that love to watch that game. So if you're able to go in there and stream a game that doesn't have a lot of competition in the directory, then you are able to meet and do it at a high quality and be really engaging. You will give yourself a really good opportunity to succeed.
So I do agree. You've got a really interesting, I'm just going to jump in because you've got a really interesting specific topic there. That's literally what I did on my side channel this past year. But I didn't do it through streaming because I think streaming is too hit and miss in a way. So, for example, literally FTL, love it. I know there's a huge audience. I wanted to talk about it. Did a review about FTL, 500,000 views, right? Yeah. This is a game that has not been updated in years. And I totally agree with you that like that niche has the hardcore fans. I think it's just being really specific about how you pick it. That's really, really dangerous. You have to be
very cognizant of it. And if it doesn't work, if you aren't getting people coming in saying things like, oh man, it's so nice to see somebody streaming this. If you're not getting like that confirmation that you've made a good decision in there and choosing a directory that isn't populated, then just let it go. It's not working out. Like you can't commit to something that just isn't happening. but I do think they're like almost all of my growth beyond that has come from like networking has come from directory choice, specifically directory choice. It's not always just about talking it's not always just about like streaming what's popular. It's about like trying to find like whether you're a 10 ccv streamer, a 50 ccv streamer, and a 200 ccv streamer, finding a directory where you will be in a prime point to be discovered within that particular niche. And this is something that I know we've talked about off stream previously. In fact, some of the first conversations I've ever had with you was like how you can leverage front page opportunities specifically to grow. And that, you know, your experience is that it doesn't really work and it doesn't really convert. And my opinion was that I've found a way that you can really leverage that into actual meaningful long-term growth by using it to elevate your directory position. And that has been really beneficial. So yeah, I think directory choice is important. And I actually think that directory choice is, at least in terms of like games, less important for music streamers, IRL, just chatting, all that stuff. But games specifically, I think directory choice is probably like in the top 5 things that will dictate your success and ability to grow.
I think the problem I have is that it's not that I disagree that directory choice matters. I just think that for doing this long term, I'm so broken with how my brain works in this platform now that I can't help but be like, I don't want to think about my directory position. I want people to find me no matter what I'm doing, which is why when people say like, oh, what is the best game to grow? Or you have to play this niche game, you know, which is something that a lot of small streamer spaces constantly talk about. And it kind of comes out, not the way you're saying it in a way that's like, I'm going to play things I like and be smart about it by also considering these things. But they tend to fall into like, I don't want to play Stardew Valley. I hate Stardew Valley, but if I play it, I'll be in the top 5, so I'm going to play it. And my logic is always, you know, if you love Fortnite and you want to be a Fortnite creator, you can play Fortnite. You just have to be aware of the fact that you need to have something else bringing them in, because you're not going to get it from the category.
Well, that's the thing as well, is like directory position is important for Twitch specifically, because you have like generally the more viewers you have, the higher in the position you're going to be for the majority of people. I know that Twitch allows you to organize it in lots of different ways, but generally it is by
no one does,
highest viewer streamer to the lowest. So if you've got the highest position in the directory, the first people going to that directory to watch that game are going to click on your channel. And that is important because you are going to be getting the opportunity to and exposure to those people to get them to come in. But I guess the problem in terms of like stagnating and like I guess like going backwards in terms of like how many people are watching you by streaming something that doesn't have a lot of browse traffic and in a directory position that isn't favorable, is that Twitch is a really time-consuming platform for people to watch. It requires a very specific set of circumstances, like life circumstances, to be able to invest in watching the platform regularly. Like you need to be working from home. You need to, you know, you have like lost your job, be a stay-at-home mom, you know, like any number of very specific circumstances that allow you to watch like regular 4-5 hour streams.
I mean, my Twitch viewership has completely fallen off these last few months because I'm a dad, right? Like when she was tiny, I was able to like maybe throw a stream on and I'd watch ZFG do speed runs and she'd just be asleep on me. These days, she's moving around. She wants to be outside. I don't have time to sit inside and watch streams as much anymore, you know? It's brutal.
Like, and then the thing about that is that a lot of the time, those life circumstances are temporary, and you are going to have like a lot of your core viewership, your core community. They still care about you. They just don't have time to watch your streams, and they will move on. And that's like I guess the reality. So you always need to be like, if you actually want to grow, you need to be thinking about like how you can reach new people to replace those people that are naturally dropping off. Like that is just like you can't grow if you aren't growing, like you aren't getting more people, then you're losing. And that's like the reality of like that momentum.
When I did my business marketing courses, we called it churn versus reach, right? Is that, you know, your core audience or your core customers for your business are going to slowly churn as they move on or move neighborhoods and stuff, but your reach has to make up for that. And if you want to increase that, it actually has to do more than that, which is why I always
That's
say
exactly
to people,
the terminology that I think about it in. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I always say to people, you know, like, I think sometimes I'm too harsh on the idea of directory positioning, but it's because I see so many people literally just like playing something they despise because they think it's going to help them in the directory. And of course
it does.
Yeah.
That's not the key takeaway there, is like play something that is favorable to your directory position even if you're not enjoying yourself. Again, it comes back to that like authenticity and that like personal satisfaction and joy that you get out of creating content. Like that needs to be the most important factor, or if not like balanced against like the rational decision making. And that is like ultimately, I think any creative pursuit, you always need, if you want to pursue it as a career and actually make it be like what keeps a roof over your head, you need to have that part of you that balances the creative, emotive side with the reality, the pragmatic like decision making, and striking that balance.
And I think I haven't had that. I think to be honest, because of that, what I talked about, how I had those like, you know, experts in my ear for so long coming at me, I think I fucked up that balance, because in my head I was like, everything has to be optimized. You know what I mean? When I'm offline, I need to be getting viewers, and then when I'm online, I need to be appealing directly to those viewers and nothing else. And
sure,
I think I've only recently kind of balanced that back out by having a break. And one of the big things is that when I do come back to streaming on Twitch, I'm probably going to go back to the old school where I'm streaming at nighttime in my ANZ space. I'm streaming categories that I love that also, again, I'll appear near the top, like Breath of the Wild and things like that are beloved. So I think I'm coming back to the right balance. It's just, I know that with the amount of time I have, I've had to be conscious of myself and go, I know that streaming long term, like streaming a lot in a week, is not going to help me compared to just spending 2 nights a week going live and then the rest is making videos, you know?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's the correct decision for everyone, obviously.
Exactly. And that comes back to the idea of like creating like an environment to be consistent. And like, for context, for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm a full-time streamer. I stream 4 days a week. I stream in those streams 5 to 6 hours. So in terms of like live time, some weeks I might only be live for 20 hours.
Yeah.
Which for a full time, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that then creates the environment for me to be able to, number one, relax and actually have time to myself, but also to invest into learning, to talking, to networking, to watching other streamers. Like I watch a lot of Twitch, and the reason that I do that is to find other content creators to be inspired by and to understand what I enjoy about their streams and how I can incorporate that into my own. Like giving yourself the freedom to do other things outside of just being live, I think is really, really important to longevity.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that, because I think watching you is what really reminded me of what I loved about streaming. You know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of time these last 2 years being very mindful about why I create content and what I do. And I think it's part of the reason why my side channel has had so much more success lately. But I think when it comes to streaming, I never really found that mindfulness, or it took me a lot to remember what I loved about it. And I think sitting in your chat, sitting in your community and seeing the way people engage, seeing the in-jokes, it really reminded me of how I used to be and how my community used to be. And I think that was a big turning point for me. So like being in someone else's stream and being like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is what I want, or this is what I want to be like, you know, and then finding your own way to twist that to yourself and be your authentic self is really powerful. So I think that's spending the time is huge.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
I think we are coming quite close to the end of everything. The entire world is going to heat, death, burn. So we probably should have to wrap the stream up so we can spend time with that.
I'm ready for the sweet release.
Yes, it's been a hectic year. So I think bringing this to a close, the one thing I would like to kind of wrap up on for you is, can you tell me the best moment, or at least the moment that comes to mind, where you've realized this is what I love, this is what I want to be doing, like this streaming stuff, this is me. You know, I'd love to hear about that moment for you. It's a big moment question.
I have that surreal moment so often.
Yes. Yeah.
Genuinely, like there is some days where I'll be just like sat here in my office typing away, working on something, chatting to somebody in Discord. I'm like, this is great. I love this. Like, I can't believe this. Like any time that I'm like doing one of my silly cosplay streams, I'll have that moment of like, I can't believe I'm doing this as my job. I will often exclaim that on stream. I can't believe this is my job. This is ridiculous. Like, I'm just always so incredibly grateful that there is people out there that want to watch me do silly things and are willing to choose to support that by watching or like by subscribing, whatever it is. Like, it's just yeah, I have that feeling so often, so often, which is very unique to me because, like, man, I used to be very anxious, very depressed person, and to be have that become a sense of like routine gratitude and joy is very different from how I used to be.
Yeah, dude, I love that so much. That's the same with me. I feel like I constantly have these moments of, you know, I can't believe I'm doing this stupid Amazon stream where I'm dressed in a maid outfit. This is amazing. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then, you know, 2 weeks later, I'd be doing a different one that would make me have the same feeling. And then sometimes it was even small. Sometimes it would be like, I'd just be playing a game and having a laugh with people from my community. And I'd be like, this is amazing, you know? And I think it's so cool hearing creators who have those moments, you know, and the freedom and the expression they get from being on this platform is just awesome.
I just remembered one very specific moment where I was brought to the verge of tears at this overwhelming sensation of, I can't believe this is like what I'm doing. It was just after I'd gone full time and I went to TwitchCon Amsterdam. It was the first time I've gone to any convention. And I remember on the first day, I was just by myself. I'd had breakfast with a couple of friends. I walked in to the convention by myself, walked in through the badge pass, and I walked into the big like communal like convention area, and I was surrounded by this ocean of people, and like there's Twitch logos and everything there. I'd just gone full time. This had just become my job. I had this lang art around my neck. I had like a little partner thing on there. I was just like, I'm part of this. I feel I'm connected to this community. I'm part of Twitch. I'm part of this. This is my job as well. Like this is. And I was welling up as I was walking through the convention center, through the main area, because it was just such an emotional experience of like that was the first time where I'd kind of, because I live like out in the sticks. I don't like the majority of people that live in my town have never heard of Twitch. They barely watch YouTube. I don't get to speak with content creators face to face very often. It's very rare. And this was the first time I'd had that moment of being like, wow, this is real. There is thousands of people here that are interested in and have this common thing that I'm so passionate about, and they all are passionate about it as well. And it's just, man,
it gets you, doesn't it?
Still gets me.
I've always said I've never felt as a part of a community or a part of something or as connected as I did when I was streaming as a partner on Twitch every night. You know what I mean? It was it was like I'd found my people. And I've had moments in my life where I've thought, oh my God, I found my people. Like when I went to film school, or when I found a documentary crew I loved working with, and all these different moments, you know? But nothing has ever compared to that moment when you realize this, I'm actually like, I'm kind of like at home here. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you right now, from a YouTube perspective, I've never had that on YouTube. YouTube, honestly, you feel lonely as a YouTuber. And coming back to Twitch is something that I found. I was like, wow, you just instantly feel like you're back home when you're doing this, you know?
The level of connection is just so much deeper, I think.
It's so different, isn't it? And it's something that I don't think platforms can build. It's something that just kind of exists here because of the decades, you know?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely nuts. It's a huge blessing to be able to be here with people such as yourself, you know? It's great. But I think that's probably about where we should wrap up so that people can watch this back as a VOD without feeling like they're going to listen to us yap and get all emotional, right? Is there anything you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, no, thank you for watching. And hopefully some of my experience is useful to you. If it's not, sorry.
Fuck you, get out. Where? If it's not, fuck off. Yeah.
If it's not sucked in, well, got him. Easy.
Just demonetize the whole video by swearing there at the end of it, but sure, it's fine.
No, look, ultimately, just thank you for watching. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and chat with you. I really enjoyed this. And like I said, I mean, this is exactly the type of stuff that I'm looking to do more of this year. And hopefully you will see some more announcements in the near future about other stuff that I'll be doing to engage with people and hopefully impart some useful and balanced wisdom. Yeah.
Unlike my unbalanced wisdom, which I'm very aware
exactly. That
of.
was clearly a direct.
It was a direct
shot
dig at
just
me,
like leaving the episode off with just like that's like
I'm gonna give good advice. Unlike Eljay. I'm kidding. Well, I really appreciate it, man. Guys, if you've been watching this, please remember that Drongo is in the description of the YouTube VOD. He is obviously also on my stream together right now, so you should be able to quickly and easily find him. You should check him out. He's very, very, very funny. Dresses as Shrek every night. Full green face paint every night. So make sure you go over there and check that out. That's great of him. But otherwise, I think I'll wrap that up there. Thank you so much. It was really lovely to have you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. Bye. And I will stop the